Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for testifying today. It's an interesting topic and one that has certainly at least superficial appeal, but the devil, as always, is in the details. The decisions that Congress makes about the economy, about taxes, spending, and budgets are or should be decisions about our values, who we're fighting for, what kind of country we are or want to be, and the future we're trying to create for our children. Which brings us to the topic of today's hearing, a balanced budget constitutional amendment, which, at least in the proposals we've seen so far, seems to be a misguided proposal about how to address the often competing values and interests that have to be taken into account when crafting our national budget. We all share the goal of developing smart, efficient fiscal policies and budgets, but for decades, Republican presidents and members of Congress have talked a big game about fiscal responsibility while enacting policies that have exploded the federal deficit and the national debt. It wasn't that long ago, not generations as the chair suggested, but only about 25 years, when under the Clinton administration, the US had a balanced budget for multiple years, fueled in part by a combination of tax increases, spending cuts, and reduced military spending. But since then, in the early 2000s and again during the first Trump administration, Republicans have handed the ultra-wealthy huge tax breaks, eroding the federal government's revenue base and threatening our ability to fund essential programs that Americans rely upon. Time and again, these policies have failed to produce the broader benefits for all Americans that the advocates of trickle-down economics have promised. And instead, these Republican policies have exploded the deficit, adding $10 trillion to the national debt. Despite this summer, Republicans once again doubled down, permanently extending the Trump tax giveaways from his first administration, extending those giveaways to the wealthy in their one big ugly bill, further expanding the deficit and ballooning the national debt, as was just noted. Now, after voting for that policy, our Republican colleagues are making a show of caring about fiscal responsibility, but don't be fooled. Today's hearing is part of a decades-long orchestrated political effort to help corporations and the wealthiest people avoid paying their fair share. It's based on a theory that tries to convince people that reckless tax giveaways to the ultra-wealthy somehow stimulate investment and economic growth for everyone, for the greater good. But that's a lie that's been debunked again and again and again for more than 50 years now, and one that's led to sky-high income inequality and the enshrinement of a corporate oligarchy in our society. These tax policies, these giveaways, have fueled the greatest rise in income inequality that our country has known, at least since the robber baron days, resulting in a continuing transfer of wealth from working and middle-class Americans to the wealthiest among us. And we need look no further than the fact that the top 1% in our country pay a lower tax rate than all other Americans. This pathological dedication to trickle-down economics is outrageous. It betrays the values this country should stand for and which our budget should reflect. If we want to shrink the deficit and lower the nation's debt, we should be talking about a tax policy that gives relief to working families and makes the rich and corporations pay their fair share, rather than allowing them to reap even more profits by imposing the costs of their business on the American people, whether by paying substandard wages that force workers to rely on food stamps or subsidized health care to survive, or that force Americans to pick up the costs of industrial waste, dangerous products, or unsafe working conditions. A tax policy that makes sure that everyone pays their fair share isn't a radical idea and should be the starting point of any serious discussion about bringing the two sides of the budget equation, taxes and revenue on the one hand, spending, including military spending, on the other. But it takes a different kind of politics than what we're hearing today, one that believes that the purpose of government is to serve all Americans, not just the wealthy and well-connected. And the programs that our Republican colleagues have been only too ready to slash in their big ugly bill and with the political scam of a balanced budget amendment that they're pushing here, these programs are critical to the health and well-being of the American people. The majority of our yearly spending is mandatory. That is funds not subject to congressional appropriation and which must be paid, including Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, veterans benefits, retirement programs for military service members and retired federal employees. These are vital programs that help our government keep its promises to the American people. Less than half our budget goes to discretionary spending, which is spending that Congress appropriates every year, and half of that money goes to defense spending. We can make sure our national debt's on a sustainable path by investing wisely in the American people and taxing fairly. We can work to build an economy that grows from the middle out, not the top down. We can provide affordable health care and child care, affordable housing, and make sure that every child gets a world-class public education, but that's not the focus of today's hearing. Instead, the solution to the deficit problem they helped create is to propose constitutional amendments that force Congress to balance the budget on the backs of working and middle-class families, forcing cuts to essential benefits like Medicare and Social Security. House Republicans have introduced at least 6 different proposed balanced budget amendments. Though they don't all share the same features, they have the same common goal: to continue to put their thumb on the scale to favor big business and billionaires over working and middle-class people, seniors, and our most vulnerable Americans. A balanced budget amendment would shackle Congress and limit our flexibility to respond to changing economic conditions or crises with appropriate fiscal and budgetary policies. As the chair mentioned, many of these proposals would require a supermajority in Congress to raise revenue or raise the debt limit, but not to cut spending. The framers of our Constitution rejected the principle of requiring a supermajority for basic government functions because they believed it would shift power away from the American people's popular will to a determined minority. Balanced budget proposals requiring a supermajority would allow an extremist minority to hold our nation's economy and financial stability hostage. And you only need to look at the chaos of the current Republican majority in the House to see what might be in store under such a proposed amendment. We've seen political brinksmanship over the debt ceiling and government funding. We've seen speakers dethroned and federal budgets that slash health care and food assistance for Americans while giving more handouts to billionaires and big business. A balanced budget amendment would only make things worse, and this dysfunction would then be baked into our Constitution and democracy. I don't think that's what the American people want or need. The bottom line is we don't need to amend the Constitution to balance the federal budget. Our colleagues need to get their heads out of the sand and be willing to look at the revenue side of the equation. During the 90s, under a Democratic president and a Republican-controlled Congress, the federal government ran budget surpluses without a balanced budget amendment. Our Republican colleagues control the House, the Senate, and the White House. If they wanted to do this, they could. But instead, they've chosen to make their #1 legislative priority this year a $1 trillion handout to their billionaire buddies. Our budget is not just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's the choices we make to invest in our neighbors, our communities, to provide opportunities for young people, to take care of the elderly and the most vulnerable, and to invest in American prosperity. If we really want a prosperous economy where everyone can get ahead, we need to abandon the misguided orthodoxy of trickle-down economics. Instead, we need to focus on policies that support children, family, communities, and our wider economy. We don't need a balanced budget. We just need Congress to do the job the American people sent us to do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.